Alrighty, hope everyone's doing well. This is going to be the weekly outlook for May the 19th to the 23rd. Let's go over exactly what we're looking for coming into this week. First things first, key economic events. We don't have too many red folder news events this week. The major things we do have is going to be on Thursday, unemployment, which isn't that big. We also do have flash PMI that's going to be at 9:45 here as well. So we don't have any key economic events coming into this week. As for the earnings calendar, similar thing. All the earnings are fairly over. We don't really have any tariff news here as well. So now what we can expect is any dip on the overall markets. We actually do have some news over the weekend, but every dip now here on out, we'd like to see get bought up for just continuation pushback towards the upside. As for earnings, couple names. Home Depot Tuesday. You have some other names here as well. Target, Zoom. Really not too much to look for. You do have snow on Wednesday, but besides that, most of the names now we can expect just all dips to get bought up for a push back up and towards the highs. So let's go on to some technical analysis. Let's go into the ES. Thesis for this coming week, nice reclaim of the 5880 coming into last week. That was on the higher time frames, January 13th lows. Once we're able to reclaim that level, you can now see we're having a nice pushback towards the upside. What I like to see moving forward is all dips get bought up on the higher time frames for moves back up in towards your 6052 and above. So if we're looking at the ES chart here on the higher time frames, these are the levels that I have marked out. If I get rid of this, you can see coming into market open, we're going to have a little bit of a pullback here, but every single dip so far gone bought up. Last week, we end up having this gap and we just continued higher all week. Every single dip basically just holding above your 5935 so far, which is your Tuesday's highs. What I like to see on the overall market is any sort of pullback get bought up for a continuation back towards the high. So coming into next week here for the ES, key levels we're going to have marked out is number one going to be your Tuesday's highs. If we can hold this level, we can expect push back up and towards your last week's highs and above. If you have a little bit of a bigger pullback here, we could potentially come all the way back down in towards your 5871. Regardless, on the higher time frames now, if we remove a couple of drawings here, every dip I like to see get bought up down in towards your 5850. So you can see this is our previous level of support, turn into resistance. Now, any sort of dip, I'm interested looking to buy back up and towards your higher time frame objectives and above. If we're looking at this on the SPY chart, similar thing. If you go into the SPY, coming into next week, we can see that SPY had a very bullish close last week. We are now above your 584 and turning green for the year. What I like to see moving forward is all dips get bought up for a push back towards all-time highs. What I like to see is a hold of all down close candles. So for the SPY, as you can see on the daily time frame, key levels in this case is going to be your 584. Previous level of rejection. Right now, we got above your 584. I like to see all dips get bought up for a continued push higher. So if we go on to the 1 hour time frame, very much bullish here for the SPY. Nice gap up last week, continuation towards the upside, holding your 584. This is now also your down close candle here as well. What I like to see is really just the hold of your 584 for this continued push back towards the upside here on the overall markets. So for SPY, higher time frames, key levels, 584s. As long as you maintain your 584, I like to see this push back up and towards your last week's highs and above being your 598. And eventually, right, markets to gravitate back up and towards 600. So that's what I have here for SPY. The hold of now, it's going to be this 584. Let's go on to the NQ chart. Thesis for this coming week, very bullish move towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we opened on Monday, we had a very nice push over the 2400. Now that we reclaim that level, I'd like to see a push up towards the next levels on the higher time frames, being the 21600 and above. I like to see all dips get bought up. So for the NQ, as you can see right here on the daily time frame, let me actually remove a couple of things here as well. So for the NQ key levels now, once we are able to reclaim back above this 21,400, this was your key pivot point. I like to see all dips get bought up for a continued push back towards the upside. If I put the drawings back on here for the NQ, you can see very bullish price action. Once we had that gap up, we had this nice continuation higher. Coming to next week, what I would like to see is really the hold number one of your 21,240. If we can hold this level, we can see this continue push higher. If we break underneath this level, then the next level support is going to be down in towards your 29.50. And I like to see all dips get bought up, right? Just looking at this from a higher time frame perspective, we can expect all dips to get bought up on the overall markets. It makes sense why we're having a little bit of reaction off this general area. But now after this big push higher, all dips get bought up for a continuation back towards the upside. If we look at the QQQ, key levels in this case, let me actually get rid of a couple key levels here. Key levels on at least the QQQ chart is going to be this 514, which as you can currently see in the after hours, we're dropping just a little bit here. We'll see how the futures open up on Sunday, but the next key level is going to be down towards this 508. So preferably we like to see this 514 hold. If this doesn't hold, then we're going to look for the dip down in towards our 508 for this continued push back towards the upside here on the overall market. So we can have those levels marked out. Similar thing, if you look at this from a daily time frame perspective, it makes sense why we're having a little bit of a pullback here, just because we already had this really big push higher, right? Any sort of dips that we do have, we can expect to get bought up for this continued push back towards the upside here on the overall markets. I personally would like to see this gap be left unfilled, right? If price can defend this gap level that we do have, we can see this push back higher. Let's go on to a few tech names that we do have now. Number one, Tesla. Thesis for this coming week. Right now, you can see that Tesla is having a nice push towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we were able to reclaim above 290, we shot up towards a 320, shot up towards 320 key level. Now with Tesla holding above 320, what I like to see is a push up in towards your 370. So for Tesla, higher time frames, as you can see, key levels that we have marked out. Let me get rid of this. For Tesla, key levels that we had last week are 390. After we broke above 390, we pushed up towards this 320. Now the next level is going to be all the way back up and towards your 370 here for Tesla. So if you look at this from the higher time frame perspective, Tesla very bullish, nice gap up coming to last week. Now the key levels we'd like to see hold is going to be this 340. If we can hold this 340, you can see this nice push up and towards your 350 and potentially 370. Break underneath this 340, we're going to be looking for the bounce off of your 328 for this continued push back towards the upside. So for Tesla, key levels we like to see hold coming to next week is going to be this 338. If we can hold this 338, we like to see a push back up and towards that 350. If not, 328 is going to be our next key level. Let's go on to NVIDIA. Thesis coming into the week, very nice push towards the upside last week on NVIDIA. Once we're able to reclaim above the 320, we had a nice push back towards the upside. The next levels are back towards the left from March and then all the way back towards the all-time highs. If we can hold above your 135, we can send this back towards your 141. So for NVIDIA, higher time frames, you can see we reclaimed above key levels. Key levels being all the way back from your 116 of last week. Now you can see we're all the way back above your 130. Really nice push higher here for NVIDIA. The key levels that we have marked out is going to be this 136 along with this 130. So what I like to see coming to next week is right dips, at least on the 1 hour time frames, be bought up for this continuation back towards the upside, right? Based off of the daily time frame, you like to see all dips get bought up, right? We have key levels. Technically, your next key level support is going to be down towards this 125 here on the daily chart. But what I would like to see dips for this continuation higher. We have this daily gap that we end up filling at this 142. And then eventually we do have this all-time highs being that 150 here on NVIDIA. So I like to see all dips. These are good, right? Especially on the higher time frames, whenever you have levels, right? We like to see these dips get bought up. And these are the pullbacks that we like to buy, at least for a higher time frame perspective, for a continued pushback towards all-time highs. As for Apple, thesis coming to this week right now, you can see that Apple is lagging the overall markets. Currently, we're having a tough time getting above your 214. That is the area that we broke down from earlier in the earnings high. What I like to see coming to next week is the reaction that we have off of your 214. So for Apple, higher time frames, key levels that I do have marked out is your 214. So that's your key pivot level from last week. It's still very much valid. As you can see, we have multiple touches. So far, we are building up these higher lows on this name. Key level in this case, 214, multiple touches. That's the level we have to get above if you do want to see any sort of continued push higher. So far, we are breaking underneath this 210 here in the pre-market. Now it's going to be the reclaim back above 210 if we want to see any sort of continued push higher. If we maintain underneath 210, technically we do have your last level support is going to be this 206.70s here for Apple. As for the next charts, AMD thesis for the next week. Right now, you can see that AMD had a nice push towards the upside on the overall markets. Once we broke above the 115 key level, that was good for a push back towards the 122 gap fill. Now that it is filled, we're pulling back towards that 115. That is the key level moving forward, and I'd like to see AMD hold if we do want to see some more upside. So for AMD, as you can see, this level is from your previous pivot level back from earnings, if I'm not mistaken. So as you can see right here on AMD higher time frame, we had this earnings gap down, multiple touches around this 115. This is the exact level I'd like to see hold if we do want to see continuation. So your 115 hold, so far you can see we're underneath it here in the after hours, but as long as we maintain above your 115, we'd like to see this push higher, potential kind of downtrend for this push back up and towards your 122 on this name. So we'll keep an eye out on 115 coming into market open on AMD. As for Meta, nice gap above your 600 on Meta. Now we're above that area that we broke down from. What I like to see moving forward is a hold of your 600 higher low for a push back up and towards your 230. So that's going to be the key level, is a hold of your what I keep saying two. It's your 630 here on Meta. So the key levels that we do have marked out, I would like to see this level hold. Previous pivot point, 630. This is the level I like to see hold for a continuation back up towards 660. As you can see, this is the higher low pivot point. If we break underneath your 630, potentially you could see this gap fill back towards the downside. But as long as you maintain your 630, we like to see this push higher here on this name. As for Amazon, nice gap over the weekend and push right off of your 206. Now that we can see we're breaking back underneath this level, we have a huge gap back towards the downside. What I like to see moving forward is a reaction that we have off of your 206. So for Amazon, higher time frame point of interest is going to be this 206. This is a very key level, as you can see right here. This is the area that we rejected from on earlier in March. You can see we have multiple touches here as well. So coming into next week on Amazon, we're going to have this 206 marked out. This is also your Monday's low from last week. Multiple touches. So far, it does seem like it's potentially going to try and fill this gap back towards the downside, towards our 194. So for Amazon, if we hold underneath your last week's lows, potentially we can see this push down and towards that 194. So coming into next week, we're going to see how the market opens up on Monday and kind of how the futures open up here as well. Really, my game plan moving forward is just going to be looking for higher time frame dips to buy for continuation towards the upside. So the fact that we have this dip coming to after hours, I'm going to be looking to buy dips, more or less longer term positions for a push back up and towards those all-time highs. We'll talk about this once market does open and kind of my game plan and the names I am looking forward. I'm looking forward to coming to next week and the week afters. We don't have any red folder news events, so as long as the higher time frame is still intact, we're going to be looking for those major dips. But yeah, it's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys all Monday morning. All right, peace.